faculty, colleagues, students. Welcome to our event on effective use of AI-powered tool for library research. My name is Wallace, and I'll be the MC today. We are very excited to bring you this program focused on how AI technologies can enhance research process and empower user learning. Over the next 2 hours, our distinguished speakers will share invaluable insights on strategically applying AI to optimize academic pursuits. So just a little bit housekeeping before we get started. Please feel free to ask your question in the chat room. And at every end of our presentations, we will have a very short Q&A section, and you are feel free to unmute yourself and ask your question directly to our speakers. Okay, now may I first have the pleasure to introduce Mr. Chris Chan, our university librarian, to deliver the opening remarks. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you so much, Wallace, for that very kind introduction. I was just talking to our guest speaker, Eric, before everyone came in, and we agreed we're going to try and make it more informal, a little bit more open, hopefully conducive to discussion. So as Wallace said, I will deliver just a few brief, opening remarks, but also really to give you a little overview of the AI support that HKBU Library is providing to our university community. I've just popped into the chat a link to my Mentimeter presentation, which I hope you can all see. And just to get us warmed up, a couple of questions, couple poll questions here. How frequently do you use AI tools? And, or maybe I should hide the results just to make it a surprise. Maybe I'll hide them. The results are coming in. Wow, you're very quick. 14 of you have already delivered your responses there. My guess is that it should be quite high because, if you're coming to an event like this, you have an interest in AI. Let me give you another, 2 minutes. That's too long. That's crazy. 10 seconds. 10 seconds left to get your response in there. Wow, 44 already. Again, the link to the Menti presentation is in the chat if you'd like to participate. Let's go ahead and see what you said. Okay. So this is interesting. Yeah, that's interesting. 8 of you always. Wow. We've got some, sorry, Carly or Wallace, if you can find whoever has got their mic on by accident and silence them. Thank you. So often, always, sometimes is there. 2 people have never used AI tools before. Well, welcome to this present. It's an honor to be giving you your very first introduction to AI, possibly. That's interesting. And I wanted to ask specifically next about whether you've tried some specific AI tools. So to my knowledge, and I may be missing things here, but HKBU ChatGPT is one of the official offerings of the university from our IT department. There is, of course, Consensus provided by the library, and we have one of the founders of Consensus here to tell us about it in 5 minutes or so. And these results are very interesting because it looks like, Eric, very, very few people have even had a chance to try Consensus. So they're going to be wowed, hopefully, by what they see over the next hour or so. But I see quite a few people have been using other tools. And of course, one of the big challenges with AI is that there's just tools popping up all over the place. It's hard to keep track of them. So I didn't even attempt to put an exhaustive list here. That's why I just had sort of the other category. And I see many people are experimenting with other tools. Great, that's really interesting for us to know. I just wanted to say a few words here. This quote my colleagues are very familiar with. I always roll this out because sometimes I get asked, what is the library's, involvement here? Isn't the library about books? Isn't this, aren't we principally about access to information? And I always push back against that and say, the mission of librarians is much broader. And this quotation here has had a big influence on me professionally. It's from a professor of librarianship at UT in Austin. And he said, the mission of librarians is to basically facilitate knowledge creation in our communities. And there's many, many ways that we do that. And my strong belief is that facilitating access to AI tools and providing instruction in AI tools is going to be a big part of the future of libraries. And in my session later, I'll talk more about that. So in a nutshell, how are we supporting AI adoption at HKBU Library? We're providing access to AI tools because a lot of these tools, well, most of them really, are not free. And really, libraries here are playing a role that we've done in the past, which is to provide free access to such tools to our community. Now, we're being much more focused on tools that are more adjacent to the scholarly communication space, like Consensus, rather than general purpose tools like, say, ChatGPT or Midjourney. But again, provision of access is one. And we do want to be experts, just as we've taught for decades on how to get the most out of traditional databases like Scopus, Web of Science, etc. Librarians in the future will be able to teach you how to get the most out of new AI tools, and especially those in the scholarly communication space. And last but not least, this is something that librarians have not done, not just for decades, but for centuries, is to curate useful information for their users. I mean, providing useful information, that's in our DNA. So we're not talking here just about books and articles, but access to high quality multimedia content like that available via LinkedIn Learning, for example, which we'll talk about later this morning. And librarians are, of course, learning throughout that whole process as well. Speaking of curating resources, this is something very new that we've just launched, which is a generative AI guide, which Wallace actually has spent a lot of time creating, and other library colleagues too, on our website. So let me just put the link to that in there for your reference. So there's a lot there, which I'll leave you to explore. But I wanted to wrap up there and hand it over to our special guest this morning, Eric Olson, one of the co-founders of Consensus, to talk to you all about this exciting tool. But first, let me hand it over back to Wallace to give a proper introduction to Eric. Thanks, Wallace.
I think you're on mute, Wallace. I think you're on mute, Wallace.
Here. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
There
sorry.
you go.
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, thank you, Chris. Yeah, next we have the pleasure to welcome Mr. Eric Olson, co-founder and CEO of Consensus. Let's give a warm welcome to Mr. Olson. Eric, please.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for having me here tonight, Chris and Wallace, and everybody who's attending. I'm Eric Olson. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Consensus. We are an AI search for research papers startup founded in Boston, Massachusetts, over here in the United States. It is about 8:40 p.m. my time, which is very normal startup working hours. So I'm very happy to be here presenting. As mentioned by Chris, it sounds like we have a lot of work to do to get folks at HKBU continuing to use Consensus. We do have a partnership with the school where we are giving access to all HKBU students via the library, and want to just say that you guys are definitely lucky to have people like Chris and Wallace at the forefront of your library who are accepting and embracing these tools and giving awesome access to all the students. So my goal today is to just introduce you to what Consensus is, why we're different. I'll walk through some specific use cases of how to use the product, give you a live demo, and then talk about a few best practices. As Chris mentioned, love to keep things informal and collaborative if possible. Anytime there's a question, I think especially as I get into the product, I'll try to move slowly and make it clear what I'm going through. But if there are questions about the product and its functionality, do not worry about interrupting. You can send a question in the chat. I will try to address it. These demos and presentations go better the more questions there are. So do not feel bashful at all about standing up and asking questions. I quite like it. I'm used to talking about all things consensus all the time. But really excited to be talking to you all today, and hopefully you find it useful and learn a little bit about the tool we have to offer. So to start, what is Consensus? Consensus is an AI-powered search engine designed for academic research. If we look at this first bullet point, this order of operations is really important. It is AI built around a search engine. What that means is we get to combine a lot of the rigor and reliability and functionality of a traditional academic search engine for scholarly papers, while then wrapping in some of those delightful and time-saving qualities of AI. This mock-up on the slide is a little out of date. You'll get to see the product here in a second, but this is a general overview. Each one of those tiles is an insight that our models have pulled out of a research paper, but importantly, it is always tied back to an actual research paper. Again, going back to that first bullet, search first, AI second. We will always start with a search to find papers, and then we will have AI hopefully make the research process easier, pull out insights, do a variety of other tasks for you that I'll be showing you here in a moment. And importantly, I think if many of you are ChatGPT users, you know, like this is one of the pitfalls of ChatGPT is that it is not a search first, right? It is generating text out of its latent training knowledge. It is like jamming all of the information in somewhere and having to try to spit it back to you, as opposed to going and looking for that information and then generating some text. As far as what is in the product, we've about 220 million papers that are within the product that we can search over. That is through a partnership we have with an American company called Semantic Scholar. There's an AI research lab founded by one of the co-founders of Microsoft in Seattle, Washington. They've aggregated about 220 million papers and offer this papers as a service, and we're able to be a partnership with them and get access to all of these papers, which is awesome. And we have more partnerships with publishers and other aggregators alike that hopefully are coming in the near future. And then this last bullet, very importantly, as I mentioned at the top, we partner with HKBU. It's a really exciting partnership for us. Through the library, you guys will have full access to the Consensus Premium tier, which will have all of these awesome features we'll get to show you here in a moment. And yeah, it's been a pleasure working with both Chris and Wallace, and excited to continue to work together. I think one more point before I get on with all of this. Our product is about a year old, and it is continually improving over time. We'll be continuing to add more and more features. That's why this screenshot on the right here is out of date, because we're always adding new features. So if you start to use Consensus and you have things you want us to add, we have a support portal directly in the web app that I'll show you, where you can submit a feature request. We are always looking for our users to tell us what to build next, and we try to move quickly and build new features and iterate and improve the product every single day. So why is it different? What is actually different between traditional academic search and Consensus? Well, I did say that it is a search engine first, and that is true, and that is always extremely important for this use case. But there is more to it, and our search is better, in our opinion, and by most measures that we can find, than traditional academic search. We use some of the same language model technology under the hood to help us find the papers in the search. That lets us be more flexible with the types of inputs we get. You do not need to keyword hack when you come to Consensus. You can type in a nice natural language question, and we will find semantically relevant papers to that question. Additionally, we still do have keyword search in our product. And if you put quotations around a paper, you can still exact match on titles like you could with the traditional academic search product. That's because at its core, we are still a search engine. Additionally, with one of the features I'll be showing you here called Copilot, even if you enter a long bit of text into the product and ask it to do a variety of things, we actually have gotten pretty good at distilling down a long bit of text into a usable search to find those papers first, and then to ground all of our responses in those papers. And then this next line, this one is kind of wipe the floor with traditional academic search here, because not many of the things that I grew up using and that Chris and Wallace, I'm sure, grew up using, those search engines have any AI capabilities. When you type in a keyword search, it'll deliver you back a link to papers. Consensus is a lot more. We will pull out insights from the paper that is related to what you're asking about. We will do some multi-paper synthesis across papers. We give you a summary of the top couple papers. I'll show you that here in a second. And then with our Copilot feature, we have the ability to go even deeper into research. And we can ask Copilot to read across many papers and synthesize different arguments, use different formats, format the research in a particular way that you're looking for. So there's a lot here in this second row, and that is really going to be one of the main differences between using consensus and any traditional academic search product. And then I think this third one's really important too. You know, the traditional academic search products, they'd like to say that they're super rigorous, but they don't really do much to help you actually move toward quality research. And that's something that we've tried to prioritize at Consensus. So we obviously have citation count and the things that people many times look at to guide themselves toward quality research, but we have a lot more than that too. We try to look at the methodology of the study in many ways and use AI to classify, you know, the type of study that it is. So I'll show you in a second. We have tags on many of our results that will say, hey, this result is from a randomized controlled trial, or this result is from a meta-analysis. We're using AI to learn about the design of the study to help guide you toward more quality research. We even go deeper than that. We actually use AI across our papers to pull out the sample size of many papers, as well as looking at who the population was, who the study was done on, who was the population of the study. These are all things that you can see directly on the search results page. It can help guide you toward more quality research and our true paper methodological level metrics that get away from some of these bibliographic metrics, which, while valuable, do have their pitfalls and, you know, aren't really about how the study was designed. And then we also have some awesome journal metrics in the paper that we'll show you here in a second. So it's something we've really tried to invest in. You know, we want to be easier and time-saving, help you pull out answers and synthesize across research, but we also want to help guide you toward more high-quality research. And I see that question we just got about showing the rank of the journal. I'll show you here in a second. You can see the quartiles of the journals by the SJR rankings. I'll show you that here in a second. So not exactly the rank, but you can see the quartile of journal is. And then lastly, we're still adding to this last row. This is somewhere we'd love to get some user feedback from and love to learn what to build next year. But we also want to build some tools on top of the search engine to help you more holistically with the research process. So, you know, we're not going to be a purpose or a perfect custom built reference manager, but we do have the ability to save custom lists and save papers within Consensus. And those are the types of things that we want to continue to add to over time to help you with your research process. And we're interested in building more of those like workflow add-on type tools to help you with various parts of the research. Another one that we have in the product that we think is really great is sharing. So we have the ability to easily share links to papers and share findings from papers. And I think there's a lot of interesting things we could do with that over time. And again, definitely interested in hearing from you all who have used the product about what we could build in this bucket here. But like many of these things, traditional academic search products haven't invested much in that whole bucket. And yeah, I think this top sentence that I missed summarizes a lot of this well. Consensus is smarter, easier, and more engaging than traditional academic search products. That's what we want to be. That's what we are striving towards. That's why we are trying to make our product better every single day. So who is Consensus for? The short answer is it's for a lot of different people. We have really tried to build it to be easy to use, easy to pick up, regardless of what your background is. The founding story of the company is that me and my co-founder were collegiate athletes from families of academics. So we were the rare jocks that wished that they were scientists. It usually doesn't happen in that direction, in America at least. And we wanted to build a product that made it easier for people like us who didn't have a PhD to be able to engage with research, to be able to use research at work, in our studies, and even in our personal lives. So we will always have an eye when building this product and trying to build it for a novice. We think that we can start with that and then build our way up and build these additional features for people who are doing deeper, more technical research. But we really do want it to have that feel that makes it easy to use. Yeah, to give you guys just some numbers of people who are using the product, on the right here, we have some awesome people talking about us in the wild for an academic use case. And we've gotten some amazing user feedback across the world of people using the product. We have over 1 million people using the product today, which we're super, super proud of. We have users at over 5,000 unique global universities, and very, very cool and near and dear to our heart is we actually have over 500 different high schools represented in our user base, which I think speaks to the ability to build a product that is easy to use and easy to pick up and intuitive. I'm going to get into some of the use cases here more specifically, but the use cases are pretty straightforward. Things that you would use a traditional academic search product for, and more. Finding evidence for papers is the most simple. Helping with literature reviews. And then we also do really well at assisting with background research. We hear a lot from professionals and faculty that they use us when they're doing research that's out of their expertise. Maybe in their expertise, they know exactly which papers they should be going for and exactly how to search for them. But when they start to venture out of their field of expertise, having a product that can give them a quick overview of the research is really beneficial. And yeah, in the bottom bullet, so we have users using the product from high school all the way to the most tenured faculty at the best universities across the world. And we're really, really, really proud of that. And if you do like consensus, definitely feel free to tweet about it or share it online. We do love seeing that. It warms our heart. And I saw the most recent in the chat about limiting the results to more recently published papers. Yes, we do have a filter section. I'll show you guys here in a minute when we get into the product. Oop. So I'm going to pop open the product here in a second. I think, yeah, I'll be going through 3 kind of buckets of use cases. Again, as I get into the product, definitely keep the questions coming. I'll try to address them in the chat. If you want to speak up, that's great too. The 3 use cases that I'm going to go over here are, first, the most simple, most basic way to use consensus is you are trying to find something to cite in a paper you're writing. You have your research question defined. You are just looking for papers to support whatever it is your hypothesis is. Easiest way to use consensus. We think we have the best relevance in the market. We think we have the way our models extract insights from papers, we think really helps with this process. And we have some built-in tools to help save these papers to custom lists when you're focusing on the subject. Use case number 2 is similar, but thinking about if you don't have your conclusion. Maybe you're coming in with, you were trying to figure out what your hypothesis or your conclusion about your research topic or question is. Or maybe you're just doing background research and you just want to get a lay of the land of the research. We do really, really well with that. And a lot of that is because of our AI and our ability to synthesize across research papers. It makes finding out those cohesive insights really simple, really fast, and really effective. It's something we do really, really well at, and yeah, excited to show you that use case as well. So thinking of that one as you don't have the answers to you don't know what it is you're arguing. You want to determine your hypothesis. You're doing some background research. And then this last one is the most engaged one. So this would be augmenting an actual research task. So pretending like you were actually doing a literature review and putting together a research paper. We're going to show you how to use consensus for that. Something we're really excited is the launch of our most recent feature called Copilot, which can help format content in certain ways. And I'll show you how to use that if you were writing a literature review and how we've seen some of our early users using that. But yeah, why don't I say less and get us right into the product. Awesome. Can everybody see this change of screens? Wallace, I can see you. Can you give me a thumbs up if it
looks good.
Looks good. Fantastic. So this is the main consensus interface. We try to keep it really simple and explain exactly what we're doing, where if you ask a question, we will find you insights. We will get conclusions from research papers. So in thinking about that first use case, where you have a hypothesis, you have a research question, you are trying to find evidence for your papers to cite sources in your papers. So I'm going to use a nice, fun one of our sample questions here. It says, what is the impact of climate change on GDP? Whoops. Uh-oh. Whenever the live demo happens is when the product seems to go down.
I was about to say, Eric, every time I demonstrate consensus to an audience, that's when it breaks down.
Oh,
it works
no.
fine in testing.
Well, the good news is I have a hidden portal here for we just launched a new feature or an update tonight, which I'm guessing is the cause of this, but I think this should work just fine. And I will see if we can get the main product back up and working. As a startup, this will happen sometimes. We are trying to make rapid improvements and we try to respond quickly, but every so often the product does go down. So back to this use case. I will type in one of these sample questions. What is the impact of climate change on GDP? First, shut off our fancy AI features and just give you a rundown of the main functionality of the product. So first, in thinking about what I searched, again, you do not need to keyword hack. You can come in and simply in natural language what your research question is. You can type that into the search product and we'll do a good job, hopefully, of parsing the intent of your research question and finding relevant papers about your question. Each one of these tiles is a research paper. So this bolded text up here is the title of the paper. This slightly lighter text below is some of the important metadata about the paper, the journal, the main author, citations, the year it was published. And then super importantly, this gray text here is an insight that our models have pulled out of the paper. So our models have been given the context of what you've asked and are looking for a relevant chunk of the abstract of the paper about your question. Hopefully this speeds up the research process of letting you know if this is actually relevant to your question. I picked a pretty cool example where there is like answers to this question and people have tried to estimate this. So you'll see the insights actually give you numbers. They are present in that research paper and that we've pulled out. And we get really great feedback from our users. This helps speed up the research process of understanding if a paper is actually relevant to them and if there's that information that they're looking for. All right, where should I go next with this? So keeping scrolling down the page, you'll see, we really do believe that we have the best search relevance in market. Every single one of these papers on this page is directly addressing that question. You'll see lots of them. We have pulled out actual figures from the paper that hopefully address this question in this gray text box. And then importantly, if you do want to learn more about a paper, you are always just one click away. Again, we are starting with a search. We're always going to have these papers on this page. You can click into this paper, take you into an abstract papers details page about this paper. So up top will be the answer that we've extracted and that we've generated related to your question. Here will be a one-sentence key takeaway of the abstract. What is the main conclusion of the abstract that our models have generated? The abstract of the paper, additional metadata from the paper. I'll show you more of this study snapshot. I think this feature specifically is really great when you're doing biomedical research, where a lot of these values are super, super important. I'll show you a use case of that in a second. But even for a sociological question like this, you still can see interesting things about the methodology of the study, what were the outcomes that they measured, and if relevant, who was studied, and what was the sample size of the paper. And then very importantly, you can click on this full text link. Now, what access you have to all of the full text will depend on one. Some of these are open access. We have a large chunk of open access papers in our database. And then whatever you guys have access through the HKBU library, this will take you directly to that paper. And if you have access, you would be able to then access the full text. This one does happen to be a full text that is available. And you are always, again, one click away from being able to access that. Good question. I see is the answer AI generated or extracted from the paper. Great distinction. It is generated. I use the word extracted a lot because that is what we've tried to train our models to do, to use as much of the real text that is there. It is not always going to be the exact text that is used. We really try to keep our AI on guardrails. We keep it really close to the paper. It is explicitly instructed and trained to only pull out information that is present. That means there still can be errors. You can misinterpret things and spit out things that aren't present. In our experience, it is extremely accurate when you ground it directly in that document and keep it very close. What if there are multiple studies in that paper? Yeah, it's a great question. We will try to capture as much of that nuance as possible. It will make it be hard. It will make it harder to generalize. And generally, I think as far as like the answer on the results page, it will be depending on what you asked. It will focus on what you've asked. When you go to the key takeaway, which is more general, it will probably lose some of the nuance of multiple findings, but it will do its best to generalize across them. As far as some of the differences between this and other AI tools, I'd say the number one difference is our main focus is on search. We are trying to build the best search engine for academic research. A lot of the other AI tools and some of the ones that you've mentioned in this space have some search functionality. Most of them haven't built it themselves. Ours is a whole search funnel that we've built ourselves and owned and tuned this custom search logic to try to make it the best possible. A lot of people focus on, given a document, doing some analysis of it. So like, hey, I can upload my PDF and ask it questions. That's great. And some of them have awesome features. We've decided to focus more on what we believe is the sharpest problem in the research space, which is the search for insights and the search for papers. So we believe we have the best search function in the world of all AI products, but some of these other ones have great like upload a paper type questions or type features.
Can I just interject there, Eric? Because it's interesting you say that. One thing from the library side is a lot of the publishers in our licenses, they're introducing clauses that say you can't upload anything to AI. So a lot of those tools that are focusing on uploading a PDF, there could be some conflict there with what the publishers will actually allow you to do in the future. So I think the focus on search has proven to be strategically prescient of you as well.
Much appreciated, Chris. And yeah, there's another aspect of it, not to get too in the weeds of startup strategy, but we also believe that a lot of those, given you have a document analysis features, are somewhat commoditized in the industry. It is, models have gotten so good that when a paper is present, when you know what document you want, getting an answer from it isn't that hard anymore. It's just the reality. Searching through hundreds of millions of papers and finding the right insights, that isn't a problem that an LLM out of the box can solve. And that's why we think it's the sharpest problem. Appreciate that. And great questions, everybody. Please do keep them coming. I may, for the sake of the demo, like pause on some of them, but I will try to always get to them, especially if they're relevant to what I'm showing at the time. So really appreciate the interaction. One quick thing, I'll get to some of our flash here for more fun AI features here in a second, but some of the just basic other functionality of the product that's really useful. Say you're writing this for a paper, you're looking for evidence for your paper. One, we have an auto cite button that will generate a citation for you that you can copy over for this paper. Additionally, if you want to save a list of papers that you want to come back to or you want to revisit, you can create your own custom list. You can say, hey, this is my research question. Now I have this list here. I'm going to add this paper to it. This paper, I can add it to my list. And yeah, it is not going to completely replace reference managers, but if you're looking to do some quick saving, we think we have a nice user interface of saving these papers directly in your library. And this is something that only our premium members are able to access. So through the HKBU library, you have as many bookmarks as your heart could desire. And something else that is pretty great about the bookmarking feature is you can also save searches. So you could save this entire search and you can revisit that as you please. So pretend you wanted to go to your bookmarks, click on this. This will actually take you directly back to that exact search that you were searching for, which a lot of our users really appreciate. Awesome. Now let's get to some of the more fun AI features in our product. So let's do a biomedical example. So I'm going to ask, in this case, a yes/no question. Say I was doing research on the question, does creatine improve cognition? So I'm going to turn Copilot off to start. So first, What you're seeing now up top is what we call our synthesize feature. This is another feature for our premium tier that you have full access to through the HKBU library. So what this is GPT-4 being given the top 10 papers if they are above a certain relevance threshold. So we have our search functionality, make sure these are relevant papers to your question. If they're not, we won't give you a summary. We only will give you a summary of what we believe actually is addressing your question. And this is just a simple one-sentence overview of the 10 papers. It will always tell you how many it analyzed. It isn't giving exact citations like our other feature is here in a second, just because it is purposefully generalizing a lot. It is just a one-sentence overview and is using all of the 10 papers. On the right, you will see a consensus meter. So this is only used if you've asked a yes/no question, where it is not perfect, but the goal of it is to give you a snapshot of where the evidence leans toward your question. So of the insight that we've pulled out, we'll have models that will try to say, does this suggest the answer to the question is yes? Does this suggest maybe? Or does this suggest no? This isn't meant to be a definitive answer of this research question, but where a lot of our users get a lot of value from this is, say you're writing a paper, you know what the stance it is you're taking in your paper, and you want to find supporting or contrasting evidence to that question. So let's say you knew in your paper, you were writing about why it doesn't and why in your study, you didn't find any positive effects. Well, you can click on this button, and then you can filter just for the papers that have concluded no. So you can quickly get to finding the papers that have arrived on the conclusion quickly and help you streamline finding that right evidence that is right for the hypothesis that you have in your paper. To show you some of the other awesome features here with this biomedical example, we have this great study snapshot feature. This is what you saw on the paper details page. And these are models that we have that are instructed to pull out specific information from the paper. This one here is a great example. It's a randomized control trial of young adults. There were 22 of them, and they looked to measure the outcomes of cognitive process and psychomotor performance. Pretty great, down the middle of the fairway, straightforward use case for this feature. Pop open this other one, see how this one is. Another great use case here, sample size of 30, shows you the methodology, the population, and the outcomes. Yeah, so I see the question in there about the nuance required. Yeah, that's a model we need to continue to improve. Basically, that is only blocking the synthesis for certain questions. The search will always work. Because we are taking this extra step of trying to synthesize across research, we want to put some guardrails on the types of questions we're giving answers to. So all that is one filter on if there is like identity groups used in the question. We'll say, hey, we're going to return your research, but we're not going to try to synthesize it for you. I'm sure it probably filters out some things where there's a totally valid research question there. All that is a guardrail on the synthesis. Our search will always work, but sometimes you'll see it will say, hey, we're going to pause on synthesizing across these papers for you. Great questions. All right, let's see what else we can do here. And then, yeah, I think, again, this would be a cool example of if you were trying to find all these papers that concluded in a certain direction, you could make a research list that says creatine papers suggest no. Create your list, add to that list. And you could come back up here and say, well, now I want to find all the papers that argue the other way. And then you could create your new list that suggests yes. This is a really popular way we've seen this bookmarking and meter feature used in cohesion with one another that we think is pretty special to our product. And again, if you want to revisit your bookmarks, you click on this top right feature over here. You can go right into the papers that you've saved. There they are. Here they go. It covers, so the question was, is the answer AI on that front page generated only from open access papers? The answer is no. We generate that from the abstract of the paper. So we have the abstracts for all 200 million papers. Awesome. All right. Let's get into another use case here. So let's say, so that was, I think hopefully that showed like some pretty basic natural language question searching, finding papers you'd want to cite in a paper. Now I'll take a kind of different approach of, let's pretend I didn't have a hypothesis or I didn't have an answer in mind. I think this could be thought of as one, trying to determine what your hypothesis would be. But again, I think another really great way that we continually see people use the product is trying to do background research and get an overview of what the research says about a new topic. So I'll show you one. I'll show you how we can use our awesome Copilot feature to do some pretty interesting things for this use case. So I'll pick another yes/no question just so we can see the meter in all its glory. So let's say I ask, does immigration increase local unemployment levels? So first, interesting out of the gate. This was a question I was trying to come up with an interesting research question coming into this that I didn't really know the answer. And I know that there's research on both sides of the fence. And I think right away, we hopefully can be driving value if you're trying to do research, background research on a subject like this, where you get some quick snapshot of what the evidence would say around this research question. And again, you could come in here and say, oh, let me dig into these no's, filter by no's. Here are all the no's. You could filter by yes. Say, oh, here's all the yeses. And then I think something else interesting here is, actually, I'll save this next feature for the following use case. But I want to use this to show you guys the Copilot feature. So we're super, super excited about the Copilot feature. Basically what it is GPT-4 embedded within the product in a way that is completely flexible. So this is really instructed and on guardrails to summarize in one sentence the paper. So you'll see it's super stable. It'll always generate one sentence. Copilot, you can get a little more flexible. It's going to give you longer responses that are always going to be citing the research papers that we've returned with our search function, but you can do some pretty cool stuff with it because we allow for a little more flexibility. So first, if you just flip it on for just a simple question, what you're going to get is just a more lengthy answer with citing the sources. So you'll see here, you will get similar takeaways that you would just with this sentence or going through the papers, but it will really give you a little bit more of a synthesis, a little bit more of a drawn out answer to your questions. And very cool, because we're drawing this out more and we're not asking to generalize as much, we're going to be giving you citations to exactly where we found that insight. So the way it's instructed to work is give an overview and a quick conclusion, but have the meat of it to a question always be just giving you insights directly from those papers. So every one of these bullets should always have a citation that you can click on and go right back down to that paper that you're looking at. Give you a minute to look at that summary. Feature we're pretty proud of. It's only been launched for about a week or two, and I've gotten some awesome feedback from it so far. But this is still not using it to its full potential. Because of that added flexibility, now the way that I like to use it the most is be asking a core research question so that the search can be really effective in finding relevant papers. And then you can add on some command words like you were talking to a chatbot to get it to format it in different ways or give different flavors of answers. So something that I've seen some of our users do that I think is really interesting, especially for this background research use case, would be say, hey, group together the arguments on both sides of the fence. And I haven't actually done this for this question, so it's going to be a live seeing how the Copilot works along with you guys. But usually when you ask it something like this, it's pretty receptive at oh yeah, here we go. I did a great job. Awesome. So yeah, you'll see now it is flexible, answering in a different format where it says, hey, here are some arguments that suggest that it does increase local unemployment levels, and here are some arguments that suggest that it doesn't. So it's grouped them for you into two different schools of thought. It can do some flexible formatting for you. I'll show you another really cool example of this here in the next use case. I just got the question from my experience searching for keywords or searching for questions, which ones generate better results. Generally, the best way to search is to ask a well-formatted, fairly simple research question. We, with some of the under the hood technology of the search, are able to parse some intent from your question that will get us to be really good at finding the right papers and finding the right insights. But I do want to be clear that, like, you know, the longer and more specific and more nuanced your question, the more hit and miss it will be. Sometimes you don't ask questions about topics that there is enough research. Sometimes we'll screw up on our end, likely, and we'll parse intent the wrong way and go looking for the wrong papers. Keywords will be a little more stable in that way. If you just type in keywords, we will find you relevant papers to those keywords, I promise. You will be missing out on some of that insight extraction. Like, we'll just show you that key takeaway. And yeah, the papers, you know, it is likely, maybe there's a core intent that you have under that keyword that we don't really have a way of predicting. We'll find relevant things to what you're searching. It will just be a little less precise. So keywords are going to be very stable, a little less precise. Questions have a higher ceiling, lower floor, is the way I guess I'd put it, where if you're asking pretty well formatted questions, you're going to get really good results. Great. All really, really great questions. Awesome. And just because we were talking about, I'll show you, I had this on my demo to show you guys a fun background research. Maybe you're in an argument with another faculty member or student, or maybe you just have a debate club or something, you just want a quick answer. You can just come in and ask nice, simple, natural language questions. And hopefully we are a good representation of what the research says to some of these famous research questions. So sometimes you have to gut check that the whole pipeline is still working with questions where there is a scientific consensus. And it's always cool to see this quick snapshot overview sometimes. Awesome. So I'm going to get into this third use case, which is executing a specific task. And in this case, it'd be doing a literature review. So I'm going to start with a different type of question, go back into the biomedical world after we just did some more softer sciences questions. So I'll say, what is the best treatment for restless leg syndrome? Let me first turn these off. This is our lower environment, so it will be a little bit slower than the main product is. There we go. Awesome. So again, just typing in the natural language question, looks like we found a good amount of papers that are going to be relevant. And you know, the first thing that we're going to be hopefully driving some value in is, if you're looking to do research on the topic, we're going to give you a nice quick snapshot overview of those top research papers. So let's say you wanted to know this question. First, you want to just get a lay of the land, or what could I dig into more? Like what could be some of the criteria that I put around this research question if I was trying to go deeper? This would be a great place to start, a great place to get an overview. Of course, you could always click on these, decide to dig in deeper on these papers, click into them, add them to your list. A feature that I haven't talked about, I don't know if I have it set up on here. Our search results page is formatted to be connected to reference managers. So if you right click on the search results page, you should be able to integrate it with a tool like Zotero immediately and export to it if you use a reference manager for this work. If there are other reference management tools that you guys recommend to students or that students and faculty use at HKBU, please do let us know. We're always looking for more to format our results to be able to do so. I did just get a new computer, so I do not have Zotero on my computer, or else I could show you how that worked. Awesome. So again, a great quick snapshot overview of the research. But let's say now I have some criteria that I want to follow, and I can only include studies in my literature review that have a certain sample size or a certain study methodology. That's where our awesome filters can come in. So first off, I know there was a question about years. We have the ability to just say, hey, I want only research after a certain year. We will make this more granular over time. We just wanted to get this out and set up for some filtering, but you can click here and it will only show you papers after this certain date. I know there were some also questions about journals. You can also filter by journals here. This is the Simago journal rank quartiles, and we let you filter by Q1 journals, Q2, Q3, Q4, and so on. Additionally, you can sort by domain. Sometimes, if you ask a question where there could be meanings in different domains or fields, and you wanted to make sure, hey, I only want you to focus on biology because I'm asking about something that could be interpreted as multiple things, you can come in here and filter and try to only get papers that are classified as a certain domain. There's 19 domains that you can filter by. But for this use case that I'm showing you, and what we think is really valuable that we have is some of these super granular study type classifications and the ability to filter by some of these more discrete aspects of a research paper. So one, let's say for here, hey, I only want to include randomized controlled trials and other controlled trials, but that aren't necessarily randomized. But I even want to go deeper. I only want to see studies that are randomized controlled trials or other trials that were done on humans and that had a sample size of over 25. To my knowledge, we are the only product in the world that can handle these types of filters. And you can filter down the research by super specific criteria. And for a biomedical use case, this is going to be really, really, really powerful. And you can see we've here returned again 10 hopefully relevant papers now by this criteria. If you start to go through the research, I didn't really talk about it, but we do have these study type tags on the papers that will tell you what the classification of the study is. And if these are working well, a lot of these should be randomized controlled trials here with that RCT tag on each. Open the study snapshot drawer. Again, you're going to see this pulled out information. Awesome. Well, and then let's say, okay, now I have some papers that are really good, and I want to use these filters. I want to have this criteria. Something that is really exciting that the Copilot enables you to do is to be able to format these responses in a certain way that could help you. This is by no means going to do full research tasks for you, but it can help get you started in thinking about the right ways to execute some of these research tasks. So you could say, draft me outline of a literature review on the subject. Hopefully, if this works with this specific criteria, only RCTs or other types of trials that are done in humans with over 25 samples, it will be able to create you an outline of what could be a literature review, citing some studies with this criteria. Again, this should not replace full research works, but to help get you started in understanding how to potentially format a piece of content that you're drafting. We think it's pretty unique to be able to be integrated with these search results and do it in a more grounded, usable way. Hopefully this, looks like it's working great. And again, this is really the beauty of that Copilot, where you can get this more flexible responses. And what I have found to be really powerful with it is doing exactly this. Again, like if you have to think about how the product works, it is always going to start with a search. So if all you do is just type in this without any context, that's not what you're meant to use Consensus for. You should go to just a regular general purpose chatbot if you just want to ask like a trivial text compression task. What you should do is come with a research topic or question, and then you can tack on a command to ask it to do something. So again, like you shouldn't be coming here just to use ChatGPT. You could be using it to help you format these scientific search results in an interesting way that could help you with your task. And I'll show you how we can go even deeper. Well, what if we said, you could even say to this, I think this will work. You can dive deeper into some of these papers with this feature. So one, this would be like formatting content. What if you said, okay, so there's these non-pharmacological treatments, there's these pharmacological treatments that could be good for this conditions. You could even say, what are the issues with some of those interventions? Can you go deeper before I decide to write on that subject? And hopefully, if this works well, it will give you a nice synopsis that is very targeted. So you have that core research question, and then you're saying, hey, but focus on this certain part of what might be present in the research papers about this subject. And it looks like it's doing a pretty decent job of that. And again, thinking about starting with that outline, like, okay, now I want to learn about what is that section actually going to look like for me. You can use the Copilot to help dive a little deeper on some of those subjects. Another example here. Okay, maybe you said, all right, well, that's interesting. But what about the non-pharmacological interventions? Maybe those are what I'll focus on. And tack that on and say, hey, dig in and write me a summary about this other part of the research that will be present there. Hopefully this does a pretty decent job. And then while that's typing, I'll tee up the very last one I'll show you on this that I think is really cool. Use sentences. And suggest some areas for future research. So first, I'm looking at the results. Looks like it did a pretty decent job of diving into that particular lane that we wanted it to focus on. And then I think this is a great example of how this can augment some tasks. Again, you're not having to do the work for you, but you're having to dig deeper into these places to help you get started on your content. And in this one, if you say, okay, now I know the lay of the land, I have an idea for an outline, I have an idea for some areas of focus, can you even get it to help you think about some potential areas of focus for the future? Hopefully this can have some of the magic of these language models and look across what is there and then present ideas that are not present. So just another example of how you can use this tool, how you can use Copilot to go deeper for this use case and hopefully augment some of this research process. See what it says, what we should research next. The one problem, if you guys are all ChatGPT users, which it looked like a lot of you were, is ChatGPT is quite chatty. So even when I say summarize it in a few sentences, it likes to add a lot of color, and it looks like to my my bar, this would be more than a few sentences. But looks like it did a great job here of grounding its first answer in the research, and then when you gave it some room to expand, it would suggest these areas of future research. I will go out of this presentation. So it looks like I had a question of, can consensus be used for a systematic literature review? I think in the ways that I showed it, it can be very useful for that. It isn't designed to be an automated systematic review tool. Like, it isn't designed to just do that work for you. But like I showed here, like if you have certain parameters that you want to be filtering by that will be included in your review to find papers, we're really, really good at augmenting that process. And then depending on what your process is of generating the content, I think in some of these prompts that I just showed you there, you could use it to help you draft up some ideas for it. But again, it isn't designed to just input a question and have it conduct this for you. It is designed to be there to augment, to help. And I think with some of these filters, it can be better at a systematic review helping than most other academic search projects that have existed before. Awesome. So that was what I wanted to show in the product. And then I'm going to wrap with just some general, now that you have a grounding of the product, just some general best practices to follow when using consensus. So first, remember that it is a search engine first, and it is a search engine for research. So number one, focus on the right content. When people see AI and they think about ChatGPT, their eyes kind of light up with what are the possibilities. And sometimes we see when people come to our support portal with problems, they say, hey, I asked this request and it didn't do anything, it didn't produce any relevant results. When we ask them what they were looking for, many times they were coming and treating it just like a general purpose chatbot and talking about things that really have nothing to do with research. Consensus is purpose built for research. It is going to try to ground everything in a study, and meaning if there isn't a research question and isn't about a topic that is related to research, you shouldn't be using consensus for it. And we won't be able to produce your results, and we're going to try to stop our product from producing your results back. So do your best to try to focus on topics that are likely covered in research papers. We do have great coverage across many, many papers across all domains of science, but that isn't the entirety of the world's knowledge. So the do of this is Ask research questions about topics that likely have been studied by researchers. Don't ask everyday questions that you think maybe consensus could give you an answer for. It's like a great example is you shouldn't be coming to consensus to say, what is the weather today in Paris? Or even what was the weather today yesterday in Paris? That isn't a question that's going to be a part of a research paper. Topic number 2, a nice stem off that first one that I think I kind of touched on, but generally don't treat consensus just like a chat. It is a search engine first. The language models are just there to enhance the experience. What we like to say to people is LLMs are there to make our product better. They are not our product. We are not building foundational models from the ground up. We're building a search engine and trying to target language models to help make this process more efficient. And what that means is, yeah, there should always be a research question and or topic at the heart of your input. Don't come into consensus and say, hey, here's this brick of text, summarize it for me. You should just do that with any old garden variety language models. That's what those are there for. They should be there. We want them to have those use cases. You should be coming to consensus to help yourself with research. So yeah, don't use consensus just like you would ChatGPT to execute those trivial tasks that it is so good at doing. It's so good at that. We don't need to build a product for that. They've solved that. So yeah, ask research questions and even throw in that formatting request. Again, you can still there is that power in there. There is that flexibility and the ability to give you different types of outputs, but always have there be a research question at the core. Yeah, one thing I really like to do when I'm looking up questions is ask it to make a bulleted list and group together the findings. So adding on those little commands is really, really powerful. Yeah, I see two questions about the top 10 papers analyzed. So right now, yeah, we limit it to 10. We will hopefully be increasing that in the future. And additionally, we want to be adding a feature that lets you do some of our synthesis over your own curated list. So maybe that saved list you have, the ability to put those models in there. We're going to be launching that soon. It isn't quite ready yet. Right now, we just say, if the 10, and this touches on the second question, which is what determines what are the 10? Yeah, that 10 is determined by our relevance search, like us trying to find the most relevant papers to your question. So there's going to be the 10 if they are over a certain criteria of relevance. And you'll see if you ask a really specific, more nuanced questions, it might say top 3 papers analyzed. That's because only 3 papers we felt were relevant enough for your question to give you this synthesis, give you this synopsis. Not always perfect in determining that by any means. There's always going to be gaps and it's not going to be perfect, but we try to do our best to always only be synthesizing what is relevant to your question. Tip number 3. But, I just gave you all these guardrails to follow and make sure you're focusing on academic content and you're not treating it like a chatbot. But also remember, this is not an old school search engine. This is not the search engine that I grew up using. You can type in natural language questions. You can really focus on the intent of what you're trying to do your research on. And what that means is don't worry about exact matching. You don't have to come with the exact terms you need to match. We do a pretty good job of finding semantically relevant insights and papers to your question. So you don't need to come with the perfect terms to use like you used to with search engines. You can come with that. What is just my intent here? Like, what is the question that I'm trying to get at? And then, as I've showed you many times, additionally, we do have that Copilot feature in there. So you can add in some of those chat-like commands to do these certain additional formatting and research tasks for you, as it is helpful. So that we have plenty of users who don't use that functionality. We have plenty of users who use it more just like a more intelligent search engine and don't use the synthesized features too much. Use them as they're helpful to what it is the task you're doing. Yeah, ask natural language questions that get to the heart of what your intent is. Don't only use consensus, just a keyword hack and exact match on titles and authors. Though because of the way our search engine is built, you can put quotes around titles of papers and we will execute an exact match functionality as well. And lastly, get the most out of your premium features. So a lot of those features that I showed you, so the synthesis summary, the meter, Copilot, the study snapshot, even the bookmarking are all premium features. For most users, those features are gated and not accessible. Through our partnership with HKBU, you guys have unlimited access to those papers. So if you create an account on Consensus with an HKBU email address, you will immediately get full premium access to the product through our awesome partnership. So huge tip in all of this is take advantage of those awesome premium features. And then again, there are some also awesome non-paid features in the product. So one of them is, there's an export to CSV. I can pop back open, show this. Right here, you can export the search results to a CSV. That will format them into a table of the title, the authors, the years, so on and so forth. It should go right to your downloads. The Zotero integration, which I can't show you, but if you right click on your screen, you have the Zotero extension, you'll be able to upload directly to there. And then another unpaid feature is these filters. Our users get a lot of value from these filters and definitely encourage you to use those. Awesome. And that is all the content I've covered. And I'm looking at my clock and it looks like I timed that pretty well.
Perfectly, I would say. It's great. It's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, Eric, I think there are 2 Q&A questions. Can you also help to respond? Shall be in the Q&A button.
Yes. Yeah. So the first question is, the papers analyzed in the synthesizing copilot are selected using AI. Yes and no. They are selected based on our core search functionality, which uses some AI-like technology to understand the relevance. But it isn't this like under the hood agent who's doing this like task. It is semantic relevance and us determining, is this paper and insight relevant to what the query is of the user. And that is determined what is sent to those synthesizing copilot features. And the second question is it integrated to HKBU BU like the case with ChatGPT? I'll leave that to Chris and Wallace.
Yeah, I would say yes. If the question is, does HKBU provide access to Consensus? Yes, through the library. There's a bit of a difference. ChatGPT is provided by the Office of Information Technology, but it's the same for students. Yes, it's provided free of charge to you. I think there was one more question in the chat. Oh, will there be a standalone desktop app? Interesting.
So yeah, meaning beyond the web app, we do plan to do an app, at least a mobile app in the future. However, we did configure the web app to be very responsive on mobile. So we actually do have quite a bit of users who will use it on the fly on mobile. As far as a desktop app, I'm not an expert in desktop app development. I'd imagine when we would build a mobile app would be when we'd also likely have it be a dedicated desktop app. We do not have that at the moment. It is just that web app at the website that has been linked to.
I see. Well, thanks, Eric. Oh, I had one response to your question about reference managers. At HKBU, we support EndNote, so it would be great if there was if in future an EndNote export function could be built in.
That is a great feature request. We will add that to the list.
Great.
And that actually is a great point. Real quick, an important note: if you guys are using the product, you click down on this question mark. This is our support portal, and you can contact support here. And I get these messages personally. So if you have something you need help with, you can go right to the support portal, and there's me, and that's my co-founder. We will respond to you. I promise. We're still a young startup where our founders are in the support portal. But really importantly, if you do have things that you want us to build that you think would be a natural addition to Consensus, this is your place to do it. Every time we see something come through here where it's, hey, will this be coming, or could you add this? It gets added as a tick mark or a new item in our list. And Chris has seen the development of the product over just the last 3 to 4 months. We really do try to iterate and move quickly and build lots of things for our users. So no promises that we'd be delivering it, in the next week, but I can promise that it will be logged and it will be worked on over time. Awesome.
Great.
Any more questions? If no, then yeah, a big thank to Eric for demonstrating the power of consensus in streamlining our search of knowledge. So it is exciting to see how AI can lead us to the information we seek with such precision. And I learned a lot from today, and it's very surprising that the Copilot function, we can add some more additional command. So, and I also see some participants, some colleagues ask, how can we any commonly used prompt? I think Chris will talk about the prompt engineering later on. But before that, just thank you, Eric, for today's presentation. And now we're going to take a 10 minutes break. We will come back here to 10:52. Okay.
Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much
guys.
again, Eric. Brilliant.
Of course. And I will drop in the chat a best practices little blog for some best ways to format consensus queries if you guys are interested.
All right.
Thank
Perfect.
you guys so much. It was an
Thank you
absolute
so
pleasure.
much.
Okay, thank you.
Good night.